About half of Americans that apply for credit products get rejected, which is worse than my Tinder rating, by a lot. Why isn't this panning over? What's up YouTube? Since we got my introductions out of the way in the first videos, let's get into the introduction of credit. But before we get started, I need to ask you a favor. This channel is just starting out. If you could hit subscribe, the notification bell, like, comment, we can extend our reach to help others understand personal finance and credit. It would mean a lot to me, it would do wonders for the channel, and it would earn my genuine appreciation. That said, let's get started. The earliest forms of credit predates Babylon, you know, over 4,000 years ago, where Hammurabi, look at that handsome criminal. Hammurabi got about setting laws for collections, loans, and interest rates for trade goods. Perhaps the most recognizable, and the most relevant, form of credit was brought to us in the 1800s and the 1900s, and they were basically tabs for local establishments.
I'd gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today.
Private loans were extended to individuals to help them afford property, which was notoriously difficult at the time. What can we relate? Credit reporting arose from this concept. As more people didn't pay off their debts, lenders started reporting these individuals to each other. From there, a monthly newsletter was released, eventually naming those who weren't making good on their debts. Where's my money? In 1864, this concept was expanded upon in The Creditworthiness of Companies by R.G. Dunn and Company. Their alphanumeric system would be the standard all the way to the 20th century. By 1899, the Atlanta-based Retail Credit Company, or RCC, which would later become Equifax, was founded. The very first bureau. RCC began collecting data on Americans, like a lot of information. A not okay amount of information. So much so that the government would allow them to automate that information. The government! And this was all before the Great Depression. As cars began to be developed, they joined the big ticket list of items people were willing to go into debt for. So from 1919 to 1928, Ford and GM stepped in to allow people to take loans and drive off with the vehicle. I imagine that felt a lot like stealing the car until you got that bill in the mail. Following this, in 1938, Fannie Mae, Federal National Mortgage Association, led to a substantial increase in mortgage lending. Almost half of America were now on mortgage loans. 12 years later, we'd have the first credit card. Now you couldn't swipe it anywhere, since there weren't any magnetic strips, or even electronic files, because the files were note cards held in cabinets. This was called the Diners Club card. Here's a picture of it here. This was meant for entertainment and travel, and just like our plastic or metal friends, they were meant to be paid off every month. It would take 1 year before the first bank-released credit card would hit consumer wallets. And in another 2 years, there were 60 credit card plans across the US. In case you hadn't noticed how slow things were going until then, it took almost 100 years for the first credit card to come about since credit's inception. And within 3 years after that, we had over 60 of them. In the next 25 years, Experian, formerly TRW Information Systems, TransUnion and Equifax became the established credit reporting bureaus, and a law called the Fair Credit Reporting Act was passed. This was intended to make information public and remove any data that caused discrimination. And finally, in 1989, those companies came together and partnered with Fair Isaac to create the FICO. Since its inception, FICO has seen a number of changes, with another one coming at the end of this year, 2021. Woo! Still with me? Good. Now the information becomes relevant. In modern times, there are 3 types of credit and 2 types of scores. There's installment credit, your typical loan. One lump sum is borrowed to you and you repay it with interest in fixed installments, if you will. Once it's paid off, it gives its last report to the bureaus and closes out. Or revolving credit. These are your credit cards or your HELOCs. Home equity line of credit. But we're not going to go deep into those just yet. A lender gives you a maximum limit, and you control how much you borrow. Interest is only charged on the balance that isn't paid in full. As long as you're up to date on all of your payments, those accounts never close and they report monthly. And then there's open credit. This is a type of credit that a lot of people don't realize they have. They are often services that allow you to use, rack up a balance, and pay at the end of a billing period. This should sound familiar. it's basically all of your utilities, including your phone bill. They also report monthly. Still with me? Good. Let's go into the two scores. There's consumer, which is basically you and me, and majority of the US. But even though it's the majority, it's basically the most disadvantaged position. The most beneficial type of credit to gain is business credit, which is the least understood, the least talked about, and has the least rules that we know about. I don't know about it, I'm not an underwriter. But business credit is where you and I want to be later. We'll get into that in another video. And now that we're here, you might be asking yourself, what does any of this matter? If I can buy something with cash, why would I risk everything with credit? And I understand. I get it. Why would you willingly assume debt for something that you could pay off within the same month? I get it. If the money is there, there's no need to risk it, right? Right? Wrong. There's actually some reason why you would want to do so. And this is actually going to be in another video, but I will give you a little tip today. Some credit cards actually offer what's called buyer protection. So if you bought a laptop with a credit card today and it got stolen that night, you report that to your credit card, they say, don't worry, we got you fam, and they replace it and you don't have to worry about it. That's not gonna happen with debit and banks. They're gonna say, oh, that money was spent, sorry fam, you are out of luck. So I get it, you don't wanna risk being on the bloody end of those interest rates. I've been there, you don't want to be. You can stay ahead of them. But we need credit, and we need to take this seriously. Your credit score is needed for getting a house or a car. And these days, landlords have actually clamped down on us and actually require a credit check for even getting an apartment these days. That's ridiculous. These big ticket items need financing, and there's a big difference between negative debt and positive debt. And as of the recording of this video, it's actually how a majority of billionaires move a lot of their wealth. It's through good debt. Later on, we'll actually discuss that. I know it's a weird concept. How can financing help you if you're already in a position that you can buy something with cash, but it's smart? And we'll go over that in another video. Because you deserve to know how to make more bang for your buck with your dollar. Pun fully intended, and I will not apologize. That's all I got for this video, guys. Thank you for sitting through the history lesson. I know it's a bit of a doozy to take in, but sometimes understanding an institution is one way that you can fully understand where and how to utilize it these days and how we got here. The next video is going to cover how credit scores are currently calculated and how you can build them from there. So I'll see you there. Until then, why not follow me on TikTok, Twitter, or Instagram? You can find me across all platforms as SiegeJTV. And speaking of CJTV, that's actually the promo code to Yada Bank if you want 100 free tickets to sign up. I'll be covering them in another video. Thanks for watching, go out and score big. About half